Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino this year.
I was only playing for fun, so winning this was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's #1 social casino experience. It's serious fun. With over 80 casino-style games to choose from, you too could win life-changing amounts of cash. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and give them a whirl. That's ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of a winner.
Hello, and welcome to the Proactive Caregiving Podcast. As a CPA with over 20 years as an industry accountant, Jessica stepped away from the corporate world to become a full-time caregiver for her mother. Having learned invaluable lessons along the way, she is now here to share those with you and to invite you to join her on this caregiver's journey. Here is your host, Jessica Cannon.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back. I've told you before, but I will say it again. I am a firm believer that things happen for a reason. I was recently given an opportunity to meet another caregiver who has truly become the hands and feet of our community. When his family normalized the abnormal symptoms his mother had been experiencing, he stepped in to make sense of the abnormality. In just a moment, you're going to meet Chris Graham, a local owner and operator of Home Helpers in West Austin, Texas. After spending 25 years in the tech industry, he was thrust into making life-changing decisions of care for his mother. From living through a traumatic battle to care for his mother out of state and convincing family that help can come in many different forms, he modeled his company to provide those services. Chris has been on the other side of this conversation personally with his own mother, so he knows what we're feeling. And he knows how to make sense of the abnormality. This is why I wanted to have Chris on today. I wanted him to share his story and give us a little bit more insight into home health. So without further ado, welcome on, Chris.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you. It's good to be here.
I'm so glad you are here. So I wanted everybody to know where you were from. Where did you grow up?
Well, I am a native of Washington, D.C., so I was born and raised, and I am the oldest of two children. I have a younger sister who's actually 9 years and 4 months to the date younger than I am. I was there until the age of 18. Afterwards, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where I lived for 27 years.
So then when did your actual caregiving journey begin?
Well, it started in November of 2015. I decided to visit my family in Washington, D.C. for Thanksgiving. And when I arrived, my mom had moved or transformed the living room into her bedroom. So she had a queen-size bed in the bedroom. And me being the bossy older son that I am, I asked her, what's going on? And she says, well, I'm having some problems walking with my knees. My knees are bothering me. So I said, okay. So I said, come on, let's go in the kitchen and talk. She said, well, I can't walk. I'm like, Mother, what do you mean you can't walk? She gave me a brief history. She said, yeah, they've been bothering me. I've talked to my doctor. I need knee replacement surgery. That was it. However, I noticed that her bed wasn't just a place where she slept. There were a lot of other things that were going on there. So I did not say much during that time. I just wanted to get through the holiday. However, when I got back to Atlanta, because at the time I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, I called her and we talked. I began giving her options as to how I could help her. But that turned into actually a 3-month battle with her. Pretty much, we argued every day from the time that I returned back to Atlanta until March of 2016, every day about her health. And I kept telling her, I was like, this doesn't make sense. We need to get you into the doctor. My family, my dad and my sister had normalized her condition. I was not going to accept what she was telling me because, of course, I'm my mother's son, and I'm a lot like her. So I knew if the tables were turned, she would not have accepted that from me.
Of course not.
However, this is a very long story. I'm going to try to make it as concise as I can. However, we argued every day, Jessica, and it got to a point where I started breaking through a little bit. So the first thing that she told me was, well, Christopher, I can't get to the doctor because I can't walk. I said, no worries, mother. I'll get you a wheelchair. Mm-hmm. Went online, purchased her a wheelchair, had it delivered to the home. I said, so we got your wheelchair. Let's get to your doctor. Well, Christopher, my doctor died. So, there's nothing that we can do. I said, well, mother, guess what? There are thousands of doctors, mm-hmm. and you know that I'm extremely resourceful, so I'll find your doctor. So I found her doctor. I scheduled the appointment. I flew up for the appointment, bought an airline ticket and flew up for the appointment. When I arrived at the home a day before the appointment, it took my sister and I 20 minutes to get my mother into the wheelchair.
Wow.
My sister had normalized it so much that she assumed that my mother could get into her SUV, and it just wasn't happening. Mm. So I called a taxi that could accommodate a wheelchair. So we were probably about 30 minutes late to the appointment because of that. But when we got there, met the new doctor, she was a doll. I cannot remember her name right now to save my life. She looked at my mom, took some vitals. She looked my mother in the face and she said, Mrs. Graham, we need to admit you.
Wow.
And we were all shocked. And they literally rolled my mother from the doctor's office over to the ER where they admitted her, and she stayed for 2 weeks, 1 week in ICU.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it was pretty severe. So we didn't know, and I wasn't aware of the magnitude of her illness, what she was contending with. But to make a long story short, she had a blood clot in her leg that could have traveled to her heart, brain, or lungs that could have killed her. She had the flu. She had the beginning stages of congestive heart failure. She had 40 pounds of fluid on her body as a result of edema, which was all heart related. Mm-hmm. And the last thing that she had, of course, she needed her knees replaced. And so, we were there. They began to treat her. Then things took a major shift. And they then admitted her to ICU. And she was in ICU for a week. Now, my 4-day trip, Jessica, turned into a week and a half that I was there in D.C.
Right.
So, and because I wasn't leaving, leaving. And actually, I stayed the night with her in ICU, and I wasn't supposed to be there. But the nurse, I don't know if he felt my energy or could tell that I just wasn't leaving her side. Mm-hmm. But I stayed in the ICU with her. Getting sort of emotional here. I'm seeing all of this stuff again that I tried to bury. But just seeing my mother in that state was really hard. It was really hard.
Absolutely.
During the time that she was in ICU, or even before that, all the doctors and nurses knew who I was because they're like, well, Mrs. Graham's son will be here. He's going to be asking us a lot of questions, so we have to be prepared to answer his questions. And I had a litany of questions every time I went to the doctor, every time I went to the hospital. So I met the social workers, case managers, all the doctors, both those that were directly responsible for my mother and all the doctors that were sort of servicing her when they were on their shifts.
Right.
So when we got closer to the point of her feeling better, I had a conversation with the case manager and social worker. I said, what is the plan? And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, my mother's not leaving the hospital until I am clear that she's going to be okay going back to the home. Mm-hmm. My sister physically cannot take care of her by herself. My dad is incapable of doing it because at the time he was blind as a result of glaucoma, and I don't live here. So in her office, she literally slid a piece of paper to me, and I said, well, what is this? She said, it's home care. I said, what is home care? And she explained it to me. I called 4 of the 8 referrals that she provided me, Out of the 8, only 4 answered, and only then out of those 4, only 2 serviced my mother's area. So days before my mother was discharged, I had them come by the home, assess the home. When my mother was discharged, they came back, met my mother. We made a decision at that point that we would have home care come to care for my mother. And I paid for that home care for 2 years out of pocket. So I took a third of my salary to take care of my mom. It was very transformative, Jessica. It changed my life, changed my perspective on the senior community. It changed my perspective on individuals that have dealt with what I was dealing with and those that might deal with what I was dealing with.
Absolutely.
So after the first 6 months of care, I grew tired of the career that I was in. Mind you, I had left Atlanta a month after my mother was discharged from the hospital. I made the huge leap, and I had already accepted a position here in Austin, Texas. So I moved my life from Atlanta, where I was for 27 years, here to Austin in 2016. You know, I was farther away from my mother,
of course,
but I had someone in the home to care for her. But it really shifted my life, and I told myself that I want to do something that will help other people that have experienced what I've experienced, but those that can or possibly will experience what I've experienced. So as a result of that, I partnered with Home Helpers, which is a franchisor out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and I started Home Helpers of West Austin in July of 2017. That's when I paid for all of my franchise fees and went through Texas licensing. And in January of 2018, I opened my doors to my first client.
That's amazing.
And we've been going ever since. Yeah, we've been going ever since.
That's just, and unfortunately, it takes those moments that throw us in the hot fire of life, basically happening, to catch our attention. And it's
Absolutely.
unfortunate that things happen like that, but especially when it's your parent and you feel helpless, it's normal to, well, for me, I did the similar thing, wanting to respond in that way, that something has to be done. How do I help her?
Yeah.
How do I get the word out for others? So it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing to me. So talk to me about Home Helpers. What are the basic home health services that are provided?
Certainly. Home Helpers, we provide what is defined as the activities for daily living. We help people with bathing, toileting, medication reminders, meal preparation, light duty house cleaning, anything related to transporting them to medical appointments, running errands for them, which can consist of grocery shopping, picking up medication on their behalf, walking the dog. You know, we can be in their home, you know, up to 20 hours a week, or max it out to 24 hours a day, you know, 168 hours a week. Our caregivers and our services definitely make sure that they're top notch, because in my mind, if they are not as good as my mother's caregiver or better, then I'm not interested in hiring them with Home Helpers. I believe that our caregivers are the heart of our company. So I want to make sure that we have the best caregivers possible, and those that are called to this field, not those that just want a job. But I want them to be called to this field.
And there is a big difference.
Yeah, that's so important. So as we're caring for our seniors and those that, because the demographic of Home Helpers is primarily those that are 65 and older. We've had a few younger patients, or younger clients, I should say, but our demographic is for those that are at least 60 to 65 years or older.
Sure. So then, approaching this conversation with your mother and helping her to feel at ease and comfortable about someone coming into her home after you're gone. I mean, obviously she would feel comfortable with you there, but you couldn't stay there. How do you approach that conversation with others who are often opposed to having someone enter their house?
very delicately because my mother was not willing. I mean, it was a fight. And I told her, I said, Mother, if anything happens to you, I will feel responsible.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to give her, honestly, the worst case. I had to give her the worst case scenario.
Right.
You know, there were times, Jessica, that she was extremely happy. There were times that she was extremely angry. You know, she went through a plethora of emotions when it came to her own health. And it might have been directed at me, but I think a lot of it, was as a result of her own anger and disappointment and with regards to some of the decisions that she made regarding her health.
Right.
So I took it with a grain of salt and just stayed true to ensuring that she was cared for, and that she was okay.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm working with my clients, many times when I walk into the consult, I am speaking to both the individual that I will be caring for and their adult children.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so similar to how it was when the consultant came in and met with me and my mom.
Right.
So I really direct a lot of when I am having those consults, I direct most of my attention to my client. I want to hear what they have to say. I want them to say, I want them to, communicate with me and tell me if it's okay for us to have someone to come into their home.
Mm-hmm.
I let them talk. I'll spend 35, 40 minutes, sometimes an hour. I'll spend up to 2 hours in consults sometimes because, they're having to tell me a story as to how they got here and why they don't need help.
Of course.
And then they're telling me a story as to why their kids hate them. And I have to remind them, I said, look, if your kids hated you, I wouldn't be here because your kids called.
Of course.
And I'll never forget, I was working with a client in Pflugerville and her adult sons. Really, when I came to Texas, I didn't realize people were so tall, but these were the tallest, biggest guys I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God. But they were just the sweetest. And, the mom was probably 4'11", barely hitting 5 feet. And she still ruled the house with the iron rod. She told me, she's like, Chris, my sons hate me and they just want to throw me away. And I stopped her in mid-sentence. I said, I just can't accept that.
I know. It can't be further from the truth.
It's just so untrue. I said, your sons called me and told me. They called me and they were desperate to make sure that someone could be here to care for you.
Right.
And I said, so I can't accept that. I said, if anything, your sons love you.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I have met children that don't like their parents, and these guys are far from it. And I began to tell her my own story between my mother and I and what I had to do,
mm-hmm.
And it really resonates with both the adult children and the client.
Of course.
And I just make them aware that, hey, you're still in control. You still make the decisions, but we want to make sure that we have someone here to help you make those decisions. So if you decide that you want to go to the restroom, I want you to make the decision to go to the restroom and not to sit here and not be able to go to the restroom.
Oh, exactly.
I want you to decide if you want to eat. You can get up and cook. We'll get someone to do that for you, and they'll bring it to you. So it's just really having a third party come in,
mm-hmm.
An objective third party to come in and an objective third party to come in to really help them through this tough time because, kids, we want to resolve and fix our parents.
Of course.
And in truth, we can't do that. They are who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very important for me as an objective third party to sort of be that buffer and be the emissary and middleman to help convey the thoughts of the kids to the parent and the parent to the kids.
Right. That is
so in doing
good.
so. Yeah, in doing so, it's an easy, and I don't like to use the word sale, but it's an easy, I should say manifestation of us being able to take care of the individuals that we take care of. I know that was a very long response. But
Oh, don't worry about it. That's exactly what we need to know. And that is something that I experienced, and that's how it is. And until we're in these situations and we're experiencing them, It's just that unknown that I didn't prepare for this. Why wouldn't I have? I didn't know this was going to happen. And I'm sure to an extent, my mother didn't know things were going to happen for her as well. But it was the same kind of conversation you described. Was by my response of meeting her needs was her thinking I didn't love her. If you and it led to those. If you loved me, you wouldn't put me in this situation. You wouldn't have me deal with these. And it was like, because Mom, because I love you, I'm doing this. And I know I seem like I'm the bad guy in this situation, because it kind of was calling her out on some bad habits, and it was pointing out to others. So yeah, I get that. It made her a little embarrassed at times, especially when I had to bring people into her home to show them where she slept, where she ate, where she was going to need help, how to navigate in her kitchen, where to find things. And it was a little embarrassing to her. And I kind of pointed out that if you want to stay in your home longer, then you're going to have to allow people to help you whenever I wasn't able to.
Absolutely.
So it was definitely, and then of course, eventually having companions come in to be with her, because it seemed like one thing escalated to the next. Like, as soon as she was comfortable with someone coming in and cooking meals for her, or cleaning her house, or helping her go for walks so that she could find her way back home, it was the next step that she had to accept someone's being there and staying with her. And so she would tell me, "Oh, is my babysitter coming today?" And we tried to laugh and joke about it. And it was like, "Mom, you're not getting a babysitter today." Yeah, right. I know exactly what they are. But it's just, I finally said, "Mom, they're peace of mind."
Yeah. And that's very ironic, because I got a lot of those conversations. I got a lot of complaints too. Well, she's not doing this and she's not doing that. I was like, well, Mother, she's not your maid.
Right.
So she's not there to clean the entire house. She's there to make sure that the areas that you utilize, bathroom, your room, your clothes, these things are taken care of.
Exactly.
And she began to understand that over time, but she didn't. Mm-hmm. I had constant calls from both her and my sister so I can make them aware of that. But over time, she really settled into her friend, because Pauline became her friend. And her daughter. Pauline established a great relationship with my mother. Pauline, I think, went on to, get her RN and do some great things in the medical field.
Awesome.
But she really, really was the gateway that we needed, really, to get my mother on some steady footing. And I really, really appreciate those services. And that's what I aim to do in Home Helpers, is to provide the same for all of our clients and their families, because we're not just servicing the clients. Sometimes we're there to, be counselors for the children. Mm-hmm. I had a recent call just this week with the client that we started care with today. The client came highly referred by one of our referral sources. In the midst of her just, introducing herself, and I said, well, the first thing I always ask is, tell me about your mom, or tell me about the person that we're caring for. And in the midst of her telling that story, Jessica, she started crying. Mm. And I told her, I said, it's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. I said, it's going to be okay. I said, I don't want you to worry.
Right.
I said, we're going to be there, and everything's going to be okay. Mom is going to be fine. And she's going to have someone who really, really is going to be with her to help her continue to have be as independent as she possibly can. She called me back and thanked me, and sent me a text and thanked me. And even she called me one morning. I was at the gym this week, and she called me at 7 a.m. She's like, Chris, I'm concerned, blah, 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 blah. And, can this person really put Mom on the toilet? Because I have the hardest time. And I told her, Jessica,
yep.
I said, well, and I didn't mean to be, I don't think I was flippant, as my mother and dad would say when I was a kid, at the mouth. But I think I just got comfortable with her, because it was 7 o'clock in the morning and I didn't expect the call. And she said to me, can they do it? And I before I knew it, I said, we do this every day.
Exactly.
Trust me, we can do it. We
I've got
definitely can
this.
do it.
Yeah. And you know,
Yeah,
that's
we got this.
that's such a normal response, and now I'm realizing it myself. It is such a normal response because there is that transition. You get that immediate peace of mind knowing someone's going to be there to help your loved one, and then shortly thereafter, I don't want to call it a panic, but there is this relinquishment of control. And I was doing that for my mother as well. Do they know? And I probably drive the home health people that I had come in crazy because I wanted to know all the details. Did she eat? How much did she eat? When did she eat? How long has it been since she went to the bathroom? I asked all the questions because while I was able to step away, and that was such a blessing to be able to step away for a couple of hours and have someone step in and help me, or even be there while I was there to help her, it was still that relinquishing control, like someone else is going to be able to care for her the way I would have and take good care of her the way I would have. And I can now step aside and not feel like I have to retain all that control. So I totally get that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what it is. It's just relinquishing the control. And, you know, there have been some families that could not relinquish this control, and we had to step away. And I was okay with that.
Yeah.
And I told them, I said, well, I don't think that we are meeting your expectations because we're not you.
Right.
And that's a crucial conversation that you have to have, you know, being a business owner and being in this industry. But those are actually, you know, needed conversations at times. Mm-hmm. You know, there have been instances where I've had to share with families. I'm like, well, she's not doing this and he's not doing that. I was like, well, what are they not doing? Well, Mom, she prefers her drink to be on the left side of her and not the right. And they can't keep putting it on the right. And I had to tell them, I said, do me this favor. I said, they are here for 5 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Why don't you go out to the spa? Go to the spa, go get your hair done so that you're not here. Yeah. And I guarantee you that when you get back here, Mama's going to be fine. Mm-hmm. When they did that, Jessica, Mom enjoyed herself. She told me that she was glad that I wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yes. Isn't that something?
Exactly.
I was like, maybe Mom needed a break from you too. Maybe, just maybe.
So. And that's what it ends up being, because I know she needed a break from me just as much as I needed a break from her. It wasn't a one-way street there.
No, it wasn't. It was reciprocal.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So as people are looking into these services, one of the things that, like you said, your family normalized things, but even after that point when they begin to accept something's not right or the abnormalities are there and that they need additional help, one of the things I've noticed, and I did myself, is we tend to postpone that home health care or the services that are available because financial resources is a concern. So what are ways that home health can be covered? And for example, is it covered by Medicare?
Yeah. So being that home care is considered a non-medical service, Medicare does not pay or cover the cost of home care. It is usually private pay or long-term care insurance, or people may be able to benefit from what the Veterans Administration offers to former veterans and their spouses. But when it comes to home care itself, it is not covered by Medicare. It is not.
So is there a difference between skilled home care, non-skilled?
So we do everything that someone needs for their daily living. And I think I went through a few of those earlier in our call. And the most that we do that's medical, and it really is not considered medical, we remind our clients to take their medications. We don't administer them.
Oh, right.
We remind them. And that is both true for the clients that we have who are living and they're not on hospice, and also for those that are on hospice. When we're working with clients because our clients, we care for them in their home, wherever they call home. And let me just clarify that. So home could be the residence that they purchased. Okay. Home can be their children's home, where they now live.
Right.
Home could be an independent living community. Home can be an assisted living community. Home could be a memory care community. Home could be the hospital. Home could be a rehab facility or a rehab hospital. Home could be where they're visiting for a short time if they're on vacation with their families and they're here in Austin and their family says, I need a caregiver for 2 weeks. My mom is visiting and we're going to be living here. Could you guys have someone to take care of her? So home in this particular scenario is defined very differently. So that's why when we say home care, it's not literally always at home, how we define what home is. That's what's great about what we can do. You know, we go wherever they call home. We go to wherever they call home.
That's amazing. And it's such a great benefit to have. And this is exactly why I wanted caregivers to actually consider this and think about this because, you know, caregiver burnout, it happens on a day-to-day basis.
It does.
It happens before we notice it. And we reach that point of experiencing the burden and being situationally depressed. And sometimes that can be avoided just by having that extra help on hand. Yeah. And I know that in some situations, families are not able to afford it and the individual might not be able to afford it. And I've spoken with a lot of social workers in hospitals and, you know, communities, independent living or CCRC, which consists of independent living, assisted living, and memory care communities. I've spoken with nurses in hospitals or case managers in hospitals. And a lot of times they'll say, well, this client, they're on Medicaid, so they can't afford home care. And I began to tell them my story. I said, well, financially, my mother couldn't afford it either, but her son could. Right.
So we always have to, you know, think outside the box. As a family, what can we do to help mom or dad get the care that they need?
Of course.
And there have been many times where the families have pooled their money to get some services for mom, even if it's no more than 20 hours a week. You know, it's something that gives the caregiver some rest, some reprieve from the day-to-day of making sure dinner's cooked, making sure breakfast is cooked, making sure that they're showered or bathed, making sure that they've gotten their medication, or making sure that they've gone to a doctor's appointment. You know, we're there to do it. And I've seen it many times where the families have just, you know, done this and it's worked out long-term, definitely long-term.
Exactly. When it comes down to meeting the needs of our parents,
we'll make the sacrifice.
Do something. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I did. So I know if I can do it, and I don't, you know, I'm far from rich, but, you know, I just decided not to buy, you know, I didn't buy as many clothes, or I didn't travel as much, or I didn't eat out as much, just to make sure mom was taken care of. And, you know, sometimes desperate situations call for, you know, making a different decision, a decision about your own life in order to care for your family.
Exactly.
So I get it. I definitely get it.
That's something that I try to encourage people to consider when it comes down to long-term care insurance, because that's something that we don't even consider. And you don't know that you need it until you need it, right?
Absolutely.
Or we put it off as long as possible, and then all of a sudden, it's the longer time goes, the more expensive it is. You just have higher risks are present, and so it's just something that if you have it, I'd rather have it and never need it than to not have it and need it desperately.
Absolutely. And please don't have like a pre-existing condition. You know, hopefully, you know, you won't be denied because of those pre-existing conditions. But I encourage, a lot of times when I do talk with families and our client doesn't have long-term care insurance, I encourage the children to consider it. You know, they tell me like, well, you know, I don't need this. And especially for those clients that we have, you know, who are living with dementia or some form of dementia, whether it's Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, I encourage the children to really look into some long-term care insurance. Not that you will be where your parents are, but it's possible. So learn from this experience and do things a little differently. Well, I can't afford it. I said, well, reconsider what you can and cannot afford, especially when it comes to end of life. And I used to say this to myself all the time. I said, it costs to be born and it costs to get old, and it's not cheap.
Nope, neither way.
It just isn't cheap to get old. And I'm not an old man. I'm an older man, but I just look at the extra work that I have to do to stay physically fit and to stay present and to keep my mind active. And so I encourage, my client children, most of the time it's the children or a loved one, to consider long-term care insurance in some form. And I used to have, and I still do have, some long-term care insurance companies that I work with, and I'll just refer them, give them a list that they can choose from, and just call them, talk with them, definitely talk with them.
It's funny that you say it the way you did. I'm not old, and I don't like to consider myself as being old, but I know I'm not getting any younger.
No, not at all.
And so you can do certain things to help yourself now, but when it comes time to, as we continue to age and life does happen, being prepared is priceless. It just is.
Absolutely. And something else that's very important for me as well, that even with any of my clients, I don't care if they've had, if they have Alzheimer's or dementia, or they've had a knee replacement, or they've recovering from a UTI, or they are independent living or assisted living or in memory, it doesn't matter. Our goal is to make sure that they age gracefully in place where they want to be. Exactly. And if they want to be in their home, wherever they call their home, then by golly, we're going to make sure that they're treated with as much respect as possible and dignity as possible. And that's just some of the things that we value at Home Helpers, and I value as an individual, and that's the culture that I'm building within my organization. That there's no room for a caregiver not to show up and not to call us for someone's shift. That is just grounds for termination, only because this person is depending on you to be their hands and their feet. Exactly. And how dare you not call us? How dare you not let us know that you can't be available for this person who is depending on you, right? The activities for their daily living. So it's just a culture that we're building, that our clients matter, and then aging gracefully in place with respect matters. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that that's at the forefront of what we do, our mission for what we do on a daily basis.
Even that in itself is a peace of mind, because the fact that you are screening and your caregivers, because I'm sure some of the children have, even if the parents are unaware or not really opposed to having someone come in to help, I'm sure the children the older adults may have their own apprehension against the type of person that's coming into their family's home. That's another peace of mind, knowing that your caregivers are heavily screened. And so they're not just bringing in someone who is a paycheck hourly person, as opposed to someone who's there for the purpose.
Yeah. And it's so amazing, Jessica, because I can tell from my initial conversation the type of person they're going to be. And it may sound like judgment, and I'm okay with that in this particular scenario. But, after the first shift, it's clear to us how the person is going to be. And if there's something that, surprises us, we're shocked, but we tell our clients and their families, if this is not a good fit, just give us a call and we'll make the shift immediately. That goes for my clients, that goes for my referral sources that refer us out to clients. Mm-hmm. Because if we're in a community, we have a close partnership with that community, the executive director of that community, the nurse in that community, that staff in that community. We're working in partnership with them to ensure that the individual that we're caring for, that their care is, the best that we can provide. Mm-hmm. And if they observe something from one of our caregivers, they already know to give us a call and let us know. what's happening. And we'll do our coaching with our caregiver, try to understand their perspective as to what occurred, but just let them know that this is just not how we do business, and this is not how this doesn't align with the vision and mission of Home Helpers. So you need to make the necessary adjustments, or we're going to place you somewhere else, or we won't utilize you to care for our clients. And I'm okay with having that crucial conversation. I'm absolutely okay with it, because our clients and their families matter.
See, and I don't see that as being judgmental at all. I see that as exactly what your motto, or the acronym BOLD, represents. That you encourage them to bring their passion every day, to own their results, and to love what they do. And you are driven by excellence. It's perfect.
Absolutely. I laugh some days because I'm not used to being called Mr. Graham. I'm used to being called Chris.
That's your father, right?
I don't. Yeah, I'm like, that's my dad. Rest his soul. That's him. That's not me. But I get Mr. Chris, Mr. G, Mr. Graham. But they know that I'm and as much as loving as I am, they know that my expectations are extremely high. My standards are very, very high. Mm-hmm. We're not perfect, but we do our best to provide and exude excellence in all that we do. So you have to bring your passion on a daily basis. You have to bring it. If you're having a bad day, then you need to call myself or call my operations manager, so we can talk to you off the ledge. And that's happened before. That's definitely happened before.
I believe it.
Yeah, we've had to talk to some caregivers. She's like, I didn't know what to do. I said, well, what are you supposed to do when it happens? Call you, but Chris, it was 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
I said, I don't sleep, so you can call me. Don't do that again. I don't sleep, so just call me. It's okay.
That's another conversation we'll have at another time. But
yeah,
but I see what you mean.
That conversation. Yeah,
that's another show I've already got lined up.
yeah. I don't know if it's even worth it. It is what it is.
But it's nice that you encourage that, because it provides learning opportunities. It's not something that to be judged or feel like they did something wrong. It's a learning opportunity.
Yeah, and they text everyone anyway. I mean, texting is just my caregiver's, preferred method of communications, and I'm okay being partially asleep and the phone goes off on the text. It's okay. I'm all right with it. My referral sources know that. My clients know that. My caregivers know that. There isn't a bad time to call. Just call, because we want to right the wrong. We don't want it to linger, and it becomes bigger than what it needs to be. Let's address the situation and resolve it. Because at the end of the day, everything, in my opinion, can be resolved through a simple conversation. I just need to understand what it is that you're experiencing, so that we can do things differently. It's okay. And then there are emotions that happen with caregivers and their families.
Absolutely.
When we're working with a caregiver and, the daughter's been taking care of mom all of this time, and mom is at the end of life, she may be a bit stressed. So anything that our staff might do, more specifically our caregivers, they may find it offensive. And that's happened before as well. Sometimes that occurs, and I'll go in and I was like, well, what's happening? And before you know it, the daughter's coming to me apologizing and crying. I'm like, what's the matter? Why are you crying? What happened? Well, I just think I overreacted. She didn't do anything wrong. I just think all of this is so stressful. I said, that's fine. It's okay for you to feel this way. That's why we're here. Let us do it. You don't have to change her. Let us change her. Well, I didn't know if she could do it. I know, but give us a chance. Give us a chance to be there for them. And you go out in another room, and I guarantee you that when you come back in the room, they're going to be here and they're going to be perfectly fine.
Exactly.
And after I walk them from the ledge, come on, let's come back. Let's step back. Everything's going to be okay. Things are fine.
Yep, and that's what I learned to be called the human experience.
Absolutely.
You start having more of those moments, and then you have to give yourself some grace to say, I'm being human.
Absolutely.
So I know that you are in West Austin, or your area of coverage, but do you go beyond the West Austin area?
Absolutely. So we service actually all of metropolitan Austin.
Nice.
And we also are in Round Rock, Pflugerville, Cedar Park, Leander, Georgetown. And we have a few clients that we service in Kyle, but primarily we are in the West Austin, South Austin, and north suburb of Austin, which is inclusive of the cities that I mentioned. So that's where we are. But we, definitely give us a call where we can really assess exactly what's happening with your loved one. We'll do our best to service you wherever you are in the Austin area. But just give us a call. Yeah.
So then how do our caregivers find you?
Well, you can find us online at www.homehelpers, with an F, homecare.com/West Austin. Or you can call us directly at 512-549-0308.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know this is going to resonate with so many caregivers out there.
Absolutely. And, there are times, Jessica, where we don't necessarily service the family, but, there are a lot of people that I know in the industry now, since I've been in it for this short time, and we're more than happy to refer them out to support groups that might benefit them and their families, other resources that they might need, whether it's an elder law attorney or a hospital that we work with in the past, or rehab or skilled nursing, or one of the memory care, independent living, assisted living communities that we've worked with in the past. So we're always available to refer out. We definitely want to care for your loved one. So give us a call. Again, we offer hourly services. We offer live-in services, and we offer 24/7 services as well. And that can consist of companionship, personal care. We want to be with them as they age gracefully, in place to the end of life. We want to be with them. We want to be with them for as long as we possibly can. Definitely. That's our goal.
Excellent. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you can see why I was looking forward to having Chris share his story. I absolutely believe that things happen for a reason. So when I met Chris, I thought, oh my gosh, there's a reason for everything. So I hope this gave you more food for thought. And until next time, everyone, be proactive. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today. We really hope you've enjoyed this episode. To learn more about proactive caregiving and to hear other episodes of this podcast, please visit www.jessicalazelcannon.com. This podcast is produced by Cannon Light Media, LLC, www.cannonlightmedia.com. Music provided by Chris Paradise.
Mary redeemed a $50,000 cash prize playing Chumba Casino this year.
I was only playing for fun, so winning this was a dream come true.
Chumba Casino is America's #1 social casino experience. It's serious fun. With over 80 casino-style games to choose from, you too could win life-changing amounts of cash. Be like Mary. Log on to ChumbaCasino.com and give them a whirl. That's ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void or prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. The voice in the preceding commercial was not the actual voice of a winner.